What could they say? My wife, that she knew I loved her and she felt and saw it every day. My kids, that their dad was a good father and that he was always present and there for them. But most of all, that he loved God and it was evident in his walk and all his relationships.
Where do I go? What will I be? It's who I am. What will they see? Maybe I pray. Yeah. At the end of my days, yeah. What will they say? What will they say?
What's up, y'all? Welcome back. Episode 6. We're getting over that hill, that halfway to that double-digit point. That's some good stuff right there. But anyways, just hopping into it. So I think one of the greatest compliments I think we can get, sometimes it is actually meant to be ugly towards us, and that is the words, "you've changed." I've heard it. I know plenty of people have probably heard that, but when someone tells you you've changed, I think sometimes they actually mean it to be ugly, to almost get you to think, have I? Oh, shoot. Am I not who you want me to be? And I've felt those things too, but I think when they say you've changed, it's actually, if you've been pushing for that and you've been living differently and if you've been trying to get better, then it's, hey, thanks, Becky. Damn right I've changed. Like, I think that's the greatest compliment we can get. And so our next guest this week is, I asked somebody, I was just talking about redemption, and one of the first names off this guy's lips was Derrick. And that's who's going to be with us today. He's got an incredible story that I can't wait to hear about and just learn about. And so I just want to think about that, especially as we approach the month of March too, is what are we doing differently? What are we going to do differently? Or are we just going to keep sticking the same and just stay in that same lane of life? Next, I got something fancy. So we got some stickers that we've talked about. So just hit me up on Facebook, Instagram, on here. If you want one, if I need to ship one out. And then next, let's try this. Let's see how good we are. I got some t-shirts we're working on. Let me know what you guys think about this and this. We'll see if I can, this and this. We'll see how technologically advanced we are. So let me know about that, but I think there's something impressive and something that stands out about that logo. Of course, idiot, you created it, but there's just something that sticks, especially in the back of that shirt on Legacy. I think that's it. So let's go ahead and get into it. Again, thanks for the support. Ask you subscribe to it, and let's roll. So, man, I appreciate you coming on. And I don't have any notes or anything like that because I don't know your story, and I intentionally didn't want to know it until we hopped on here. So the only way I was really thinking about going is just tell me just a little bit about yourself, man, where you're from and all that. We'll get into it.
I'm born and raised in Greenville, North Carolina, man. I'm born on the south side of Greenville. Kearney Park Projects is where I spent the first 10 years of my life. My grandmother and great-grandmother, my mother, and maybe my uncle, and run around in those projects. I learned how to play sports and how to turn backwards flips, and then at some point my mother moved on the west side of Greenville, and we had our own apartment, my mother and I, and
I've been that a little closer to your mouth.
All right, and I grew up on that. I grew up on that west side as well, over on Tyson Street by St. Gabriel School, and then when I got over that way, man, life was a little bit different. I could see that it was different from living in Kearney Park, man, because it was wide open and back in those days, probably the 80s. It was the drug area, man. It was where they sold drugs at, and so I was kind of exposed to that environment. Even though I still played like a kid and still played sports and stuff like that, man. Met some more people, and those were early parts of my years. Still played baseball for Greenville Little League, Coca-Cola. I'm an 84 city champion.
Yes, sir.
Coca-Cola.
Hey, so you said you were from Kearney Park, you say?
Kearney Park Project.
How old were you when you moved?
I was 10 years old when I moved from Kearney Park Projects.
Okay.
10 years old, and then we moved over on the west side on Tyson Street.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay, and if you need to, bring that just a little bit. You can move that mic around a little bit. If you need to, you can move the whole stand. just to make sure it picks. I want to make sure. Yeah, lift it up. There you go. Yeah, get close to your mouth. There you go. So it just picks up good. All right. So 10 years old.
10 years old.
You don't move to it. Not in a great spot of town.
Not the best spot in town. No, man. It was, if you ever seen one of those old gangster movies, man. Especially in hindsight, I can reflect on knowing the older hustlers and drug dealers and stuff like that. I grew up knowing them, and so hung out in that area, and again, I was exposed to a lot of stuff growing up. Just peripheral, just seeing things and. And then, again, still played baseball. Went to the regionals in 1984 as well as an all-star. Yeah. And then I think we moved again. We moved again right around the corner from Tyson Street to Davenport Street, and then continue to play baseball and continue to have that baseball thing. And then I call it. Baseball was my ticket across town, on the other side of town, where I got exposed to, baseball, and then people from, the white race, and I was, kind of hanging out with them for a while. So that was a lot of exposure.
What'd you think about that?
It was all new. It was all new, but it appeared that baseball, it kind of relaxed whatever might have been taking place at the time. I didn't recognize racism at the time back then. You know what I mean? I didn't even see it then. I think it was when I got a little older that I might have, started noticing a little bit. But for the most part, I hung around some great people, man, on the other side of town. These days I call the baseball diamond. I say the diamond creates the circle.
What do you mean by that?
Baseball. Baseball, man. When you connected with people, man, good people, no matter what race they are, man, it's a circle that is created. Like right now, man, I'm still in fellowship, if you will, in communication with a lot of people that I play baseball with. Actually, my co-catcher, if I can mention his name, Grant Harmon, him and I, we're like best friends right now, man. You know what I mean? We used to compete back in the day. Yeah. You know what I mean? But now we're like best friends right now, man. So, again, the diamond creates the circle, man. Yeah.
I like that, man. So, 10, and then how you played baseball throughout high school? You said at Rose?
I did. Moving up from Little League to Prep League, of course, Tar Heel and North State League, they merged together once they go to Prep League. And so I was able to, play on that team. My team wasn't that good, but nevertheless, I made all-stars. I made all-stars.
You sucked.
As well.
You sucked less, man.
Yeah. I made all-stars again, and then we went to the World Series, man, in 1980. In 1985, we went to the World Series, man. Dang. And that was great. That was more exposure, man, to getting out of the city and then going, up the East Coast, and I think it was New York that we played in, maybe New York or Rhode Island, because 2 years later for Babe Ruth we ended up in the World Series again. So that was great. And then
what do you mean you weren't that good? I think your team wasn't that good, but you were.
That was I'm talking about my
later on
city team.
Okay.
City team. The All-Star teams were always good. I mean.
Yeah. Okay, I got you. Yeah.
Some of those guys, man, they ended up, going professional, playing the major leagues and stuff like that. I actually saw one of my pitchers that I caught in high school. I was in prison at the time, and I was about to go get locked down, right? And I looked up on ESPN, and there he was. And then they showed his name. I said, "Wow, man, I used to catch him." Man.
That's crazy.
So you know how you use ESPN? They play the games back.
Yeah.
And so I hurry up after they unlocked us. So we got out of the cell at 4:30, and I hurry up, man, and went and ran to the TV again just to see if that was actually him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was him, man.
That's incredible.
Yep.
So how would you? So because you're growing up, how would you balance then just the roughness and maybe the darkness you saw around your neighborhood, and then you go and play baseball, and it's like a whole new world. So how would you? It's almost like you were living two lives in a certain extent.
Exactly. I just think, man, that it was a divine, everyday experiences, man, and divine purposes just coming together, man. So that when I did grow older, I would remember that I was exposed to both sides of town, so I will be able to go on both sides of town, and right now to be able to tell my story. To tell my story. Since I've been home, I've gone into homes on both sides of town just to speak with kids that might be going through some troubles, man.
They got risk.
I've been asked to do that, man. So I just think it was a divine purpose, man, and I'm grateful that I was exposed to those opportunities and stuff like that.
So you've teased it a little bit. You didn't, you teased it a little bit. So tell me, at least when things maybe started to change, or after high school, whenever it was, when you started maybe slipping back into that other world. Yeah.
Well, after high school, of course, baseball, MVP catcher for Rose High. How high? Rose High.
I like it.
My coach asked me, this is after baseball, my coach asked me if he would get me in college, would I attend? And I said, yeah, but I never really had plans on going to college, After all the exposure that I had, including even in high school, my biggest dream was to get a job, an apartment, and a refrigerator full of beer.
Yeah, and I've been there before.
Coming out of high school, that's all I ever wanted, because that's what I was exposed to. And my friends and I, on the weekend, we would go get hotel rooms and just fill the bathtub up with alcohol, man, and did what we did. But I ended up going to college, Lenore Community College, to play baseball, and I got there, and I was in no man's land, man, and only because they put me in the outfield. Now I had played catcher from Little League all the way through American Legion baseball, and then when I got there, they put me in the outfield and maybe at catcher once or twice. I would give my left leg to be a backup catcher than to go in the outfield.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely, man. So that was just one of the things that kind of made me nervous, because I wasn't prepared to do that. And also, I wasn't even prepared to go to college. Being exposed to one side of the town. I guess baseball, I was expected to go to college, but on where I was from, there was really no great expectation. So after that 1 week attempt, after that 1 week attempt of going to college, I quit.
Really? 1 week?
It's about a week, man. About a week. I always say 1 week because it was that soon,
Really?
And the coach, he called me. He said, Derrick, if there's anything to you, he said, we just signed another black kid, because at that point I was the only black kid on the team. He said, we just signed a black kid from Greene County, and again, I had already been exposed to the other side of town, and so that didn't bother me. It was just the fact that you put me in that outfield.
Right.
Yeah, you put me in that outfield, man. It look weird, man. I could catch a pop up from the catcher position, but it looked different out there. Yeah. So after that, I got a couple jobs. I worked at Dunkin' Donuts. I worked at Procter & Gamble. Neither one of those jobs worked out for me. Dunkin' Donuts was the last one, and I asked my manager. My manager at the time, I asked him if you just let me have Sundays off some Sundays. And he wouldn't do it because, I was still young and I was still partying on Saturday nights. On Saturday nights, I would go out and then come into work and be, hungover and making donuts. So I got tired of it, man. And, at that point, I probably already done experienced some drug dealing, or at least tease myself with it. And then I just got to a place where, I started hanging out on the block a little bit in the streets. And I asked the guy for some drugs. He gave me some drugs, and then the rest it was history.
Dang. So were you, if you don't mind me asking, were you using that, or was it just exclusively just to try to turn and burn?
I smoked all the marijuana that they could grow. I drank all the alcohol that they could, that they could make. But I never, used anything else. I was just a hustler.
What do you think? Okay, so let's pause it right there. Where do you think you were running from?
Running from?
In terms of because I always feel like alcohol and marijuana and all these different things, they're just an escape, and maybe you didn't know it at the time what you were running from, but what do you think you were running from?
Oh, I know exactly what it was now, man. A great question, because I always say what was running from, or what I was chasing was the next batter is the catcher, number 4, Dr. Derrick Clark. From Little League all the way up, man. Doc Clark, Derrick Clark, my name was being called, man. And I think once I got to the streets, and then my name was called, and Doc this, and Doc got that, I think I reached the stardom that I probably was looking for when I was playing baseball.
Uh-huh.
So once I caught that, I realized that, although I didn't know it at the time, but reflecting on it, I realized that that's what that was. That's what that was.
Just that recognition, just that
recognition, and hearing my name called.
And then so when you would smoke, when you would drink, you kind of felt like that how you were escaping, knowing that reality wasn't going to come to be, kind of thing.
Right. It kind of silenced a lot of stuff, and then just in my home at the time, just stepfather hustling, mother using, and not really having that that direction or guidance. Alcohol would lift me up, marijuana would bring me down.
Yeah, I can relate to that. So, all right. So, how old were you when you started selling and using and all that stuff?
Yeah, I was about 18.
Okay.
About 18, 19 years old.
This is right after that 1 week run at Lenore, and headed back. And
soon after. You would read in the book that there was a time when I said to myself and to other people, man, that I would never sell drugs. I would never be involved with that kind of stuff. I don't know what made me say it, but I was telling some other young drug dealers at the time that y'all thought that was you thought that was foxy. You thought that was something that you was doing. You know what I mean? And I think I was on my way to college at the time, probably feeling myself, but I did tell them that I never sell drugs, man. But ended up becoming just that.
Did you have it? So you start selling and all that. Did you ever have a plan to get out of that game? Like, was this like a short term thing, or you were thinking, all right, I'm all in?
I thought it was a short term. Again, after I did become a drug dealer, and then I think that first package that I got on my own out of New York City, and then when the drugs did get back, it was like, okay. Man, you're a drug dealer now. I mean, you're going up the highway to get it now. You're not getting it from local people. You're going up the highway. So, yeah, I actually said that too. I'm a drug dealer now.
Dang.
And this is my job.
It's almost like, in a certain sense, you made it to the majors. Like, you made it to the big leagues. You start going down the highway to get. If I'd imagine, I don't know if I'd imagine.
One would say that. I mean, at least when it was time to go to prison, one would say that you probably made it now, because federal prison, you really made the majors.
How about the guys you were running with? Were all kind of in the same game too?
My guys, yeah. Once we all got together and started just hanging around with each other, eventually one by one, everybody just started hustling, man. Everybody started selling drugs. Because
the money was just too. Well, what is it? Is it the high you almost get from that? Obviously, the money has got to be way more than anything else, too.
Yeah. It is. I can probably say that for them as well. Money, hearing your name called, just having some kind of popularity, man, and so all of my guys too. It was 6 of us that went to prison together. So, yeah.
So tell me, all right. So how long were you in the game then, until y'all got busted?
I like to say I had a good 5-year run.
Okay.
From 1990, I graduated. And I kind of, probably 1993 is when I really started getting into something really major. And then 1998 is when the Feds came knocking.
Really?
But they came knocking when we had already decided that, hey, we're about to get out of this.
For real?
In fact, we had already stopped doing anything major. I was selling marijuana when they came and got me. So it was, people that testified that they sold drugs from us. Even the magistrate, when when we was trying to get a bond, the magistrate asked the prosecutor if they had anything recent, because at that point, anything that was said, it was from 1993 to 1996. And then we were locked up in 1998, so they didn't have anything from
recent.
like 97 to 98 until they came up with some bogus buy that they claimed that they got from me.
So what was your guys' plan when you were going to talk about getting out? What was your next move going to be with if the Fed and all that stuff hadn't happened?
We were working jobs. People were finding jobs and stuff like that. I probably was the hardest one to persuade to go get a job, but just because I was so deep and it was, so apparent to where I was and who I was at the time. But, I had landed a couple jobs, man, and then, I could call across town again, being exposed to, that side of town. I could call across town and say, hey, I need a job, man. And then I would get a job.
Yeah.
At some point, it got boring.
Right. What all were y'all selling other than just pot or what?
If they made it, I sold it. Again, if they made it, I sold it. I sold marijuana, crack, cocaine, heroin. There was one time that I would have, all drugs. I tried to compartmentalize it.
You wearing like a fanny pack or what you wearing? He's kind of doing this. Like, hey, I got some.
Yeah. In all four pockets, man. I just remember trying to compartmentalize everything in my four pockets based on the four drugs that I was selling at the time, man.
Were you using all those too?
Nah,
just selling.
Yeah.
Okay. Man. So then there's a knock at the door. I'm guessing May 1st.
1998.
Okay.
May 1st, 1998. It's the quiet before the storm. And I heard two knocks. I said, who that? Because it was a Friday. And I thought, hey, man, they people starting early to come get marijuana.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it was the Greenville Police Department, FBI, tax force, and all of the ATF, everybody that had letters, they came to get this one guy here and kicked the door off the hinges. Yeah, I said, this ain't about no marijuana. This can't be about marijuana right here. And then when I saw a familiar face, meaning the officer that led the charge, when I saw a familiar face, I know this wasn't about no marijuana. You'll read in the book that I give this officer a particular handle as far as a name, because he was very zealous about coming to get the players. Actually, the players is what they called us when we got to court. They made us violent gang members, and the players was just the name of a basketball team.
So they brought more charges, in other words, because you guys were part of a gang, you're saying?
Right. Well, yeah, we conspiracy. It was conspiracy. 2 or 3 people getting together to organize a particular crime, which was distributing crack cocaine at the time.
Yeah.
Right. Distributing crack cocaine.
Did you have any violence at this point, like violence in your life?
I didn't have any violence in my life. I had been, involved in some things that I had to protect myself from, but as far as, any known violence, that was the wrong crew.
Right.
You know what I mean? That was the wrong crew, man. We weren't trying to go around the city, terrorizing the city, anything like that. We were just, selling drugs and partying, man, if you will. That's it, man. But
yeah. So that's May. So, okay, then you get sentenced.
Well, yeah, we just passed our 24th anniversary. That was on the 22nd of February. Usually I make this long post, but I didn't make a post this time, man. I just, we're in forgiveness stage now, man, and we're moving on, man, to the next door. But yeah, I received 30 years on February the 22nd of 1999. That was actually my youngest son's birthday, and
wait, how old was your son at the time?
He was turning 2 years old then.
Oh man.
He was turning 2 years old at the time. He was in the courtroom, and you know, after they gave me that sentence, man, I lost my mind, and I guess I played my last stunt by yelling in the courtroom and telling people I'll be back. You know, as I was the biggest gangster in the world, I'll be back. But then once I got behind those closed doors, oh my God,
You just
man, I'm gonna kill myself. I don't know how I'm gonna do all of this time, man. It gave me 30 years in prison. Yeah. Man, shit. It's tough, man. It was tough. That experience, it was tough, man. It took everything out of me, man. And, but it was all right because I had two of my guys that with me that time. They had gotten their sentence as well. So 6 of us, ranging from a life sentence to
life
about,
sentence.
Yeah, one guy had a life sentence, and then the rest of us had numbers. You know, he ain't had no numbers. He had an L. So the rest of us had numbers. But by the grace of God, man, by the grace of God, we were able to win an appeal. You know what I mean? Win an appeal, and everybody gave their time back, gave some time back. So my sentence went from 30 years to 20 years. And then I realized I could see the light. I could see the light. I don't know how I fixed my mouth to say, man, I can do 20 years in prison. But at that time, that's it was, the numbers were changing. So I guess I always say for a measure of suffering, there's a measure of grace. So during that moment, that measure of suffering was declining, and so the grace was expanding for me to be able to see that, okay, by the grace of God, I probably can do this. I don't have no choice anyway. But,
yeah, right. Just mentally
just
trying to
fix my mind to say that I probably can see myself doing this.
So those, so you pull off your Arnold Schwarzenegger saying you're going to be back 1 minute. That door is clink.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. Like that first night, doors are shut. It's
that first night. I think what helped me, probably helped all of us, is that we were in there together. Usually they split people up once they know you. Well, at this point is a moot point because we're already getting sentenced now. So, but yeah, we were in there together, and we were also around people that had been in that predicament before, that had done that amount of time. So we were able to communicate with some of them. And they'll help you see what you may be facing down the road. But most of the time it was laying on your back with your hands, fingers clapped together, and looking up at the top bunk, and and saying, "Hey, this is what we have to do. This is what I got to do."
And then so how did that's incredible. I mean, it is, like you said, just mentally, I guess. How'd you try to break it down? Like, I'm gonna just do get 1 week at a time, 1 day at a time.
I remember at some point, I don't know, maybe when I got into the teens, I start saying, I got 15 more to do, or I got 10 more to do, and then another thing is you're able to transfer. So once you're able to transfer, you can break your time down by by the places that you go, because after 5 years or so, if your conduct is pretty good, your conduct and your custody level goes down. You have to transfer anyway. So I was able to transfer, which allowed me to do 5 years here, 5 years there, 3 years here, 3 years there, and then but I got to a certain point. I don't know how. I start saying, I don't know how I'm gonna do 7 more years. No, I had already done that amount of time, and then I don't know how I'm gonna do 5 more years. I don't know how I'm gonna do 4 more years, 3 more years, because it gets more intense the closer you get, because you're so anxious.
Yeah, right.
You're so anxious, man. But again, all by the grace of God, man. All by the grace of God.
So I've heard you mention God a couple times.
Oh,
so
yeah.
how did that, at least relationship wise, was God in the focus before, during, when did that kind of?
I grew up around godly people, grandmother and some neighbors and stuff like that. But it wasn't a thing that I did once I got out of high school or anything like that. But in 1993, while I was probably at the pinnacle of what I was into, this guy used to come through 14th Avenue, And he would pull me to the side. You know, the streets were crowded with people, with drug dealers and users. He would pull me to the side and he would say, boy, you're going to be a preacher one day. That was 1993. And it didn't recall me until probably when I got to Allenwood, Pennsylvania. That was the first prison that I went to. And I started fellowshipping with the Christians and stuff like that. Now, mind you, I had already given my life to Christ in 1998 in the probably late August 1998 in the county jail. And so I started, having that experience and those experiences, early on then in the county jail. So I went on to federal prison and started fellowshipping with the Christians. And then it just hit. It just hit and it just stuck with me. Okay, well, this is probably not about being arrested. This is more of a rescue. You'll be able to look at it then because, there's so many opportunities or so many times that I probably shouldn't have made it out of those streets. Being involved with an attempted robbery, somebody tried to rob me and I'm in one of my houses and guys, from upstate New York coming around and they on a robbery spree and I guess I'm on the list. And, bullets flying through the house, man, while I'm trapped up in my house, man, and not knowing what to do. Being in a indirect or direct shootout, get shot myself, still got the bullet in my arm and just being in that environment, sometimes you become desensitized, but once you get out of it, man, and you start to progress forward in life, you realize, you know what, man, you were caught up in some stuff, man. And then, I was able to reflect that again that this is probably more about being rescued, man, and I welcome that, and so I start fellowshipping, and then asked we had like an inmate pastor, and I asked him, start writing stuff as I was reading, and I asked him to read some of my stuff, man, and then I asked him, man, how do you know that God called you to do what you're doing, man? And then he broke it down to me. He said, Doc, man, I read your stuff, man. He said, you think I'm being funny when I say this, but you already know what God called you to do. And at that point, it had recalled me 1993. God said I was going to be a preacher one day. And then Allenwood, I was pretty much on my way to becoming what God had called me to be.
Dang. But you gave you said I gave my life to Christ in, did you say 93? 98. That was in jail, you said.
That was in jail.
What caused that flip?
They used to have ministers come into the jail and they would, come in and preach and, at that point, you're still in your early stages of you don't know what's going to happen. Possibly you could get out of this. And then if you're going to get out of this, and then you're going to get out of this the right way, as far as, where we're from and what you're supposed to do. If you're going to go to, if you do the crime, you do your time. But if you're going to get out the right way, boy, you better call on somebody because, they ain't going to let you out of here. You better call on God. So I don't know if it was because I wanted to get out of prison that I started serving God or whatnot. In hindsight, it looks like that it was a real calling, a real experience, and it stuck with me. And so one guy came in preaching one day after he got finished preaching. He said, "What are y'all waiting for?" And it became just personal for me. What am I waiting for? And later on that day, an older guy who was already saved but yet in jail, he came to my cell and he said, "Man, I saw the way that you were looking earlier." And he said, I said, "Man, I already know what you're here for. What do I have to do?"
Dang.
What do I have to do, man? And he read to me Romans 10:9-10, that you've confessed, with your mouth that, Jesus is Lord, man, and that, believe in your heart, man, that, you shall be saved, man. And that particular day, I got saved and a new birth, and even the tears came with the new birth. So somebody in the spiritual realm must have spanked me as a little baby so I could cry, And then I took that with me to federal prison.
Did you have so then you basically were a Christian then your entire time when you were in prison. Did you have a hard time living that life in prison?
I did not. I did not, man. One of the things about being in prison, man, I heard one guy who actually was a preacher, but he ended up in prison, and I guess he observed this in his, I don't know, maybe 16 months of doing prison. I heard him say this. He said that, you know, in prison they'll let you be what you want to be, as long as you be it.
What do you mean?
You can't go around faking. You can't go around faking. If I'm going to be a Christian, then be a Christian. If I'm going to be a Muslim, then be a Muslim. If I'm going to be whatever I say I am, they give you room. People give you room to do that. They give you room to do that. But the first time you start, you know, looking crazy about what you profess, you know, then you probably, you know, get picked on or, you know, get talked about. But I was allowed to be that, man, because people, you know, allowed me to be that.
Really? That's awesome. Did you find, though, at least from a race perspective, do you feel like was it segregated, though, in prison?
Of course, it was segregated in many forms, man. As far as religion, you know, of course, Christians, for the most part, set with Christians, and Muslims set with Muslims, and then all the other faiths and denominations set with each other, and then there was, you know, white race. If they weren't Christian, they would, you know, go sit with each other, and some black races would sit with each other, and then all other races, you know. So it was pretty segregated, but it's pretty organized and controlled without anyone controlling it.
Yeah. So if you and I are Christian in prison, there would be no issue with us sitting down at the table and breaking bread and anything like that?
There's no issue at all.
Oh, okay.
Just long as you're going to be a Christian. You can't be a Christian then be an Aryan. I can't be a Christian and then I'm going to be whatever, you know, black mafia, and then I'm going to go run around acting black mafia-ish.
Yeah.
If you're going to be that, you know. And then you're allowed to operate in what you said you were.
Man. So then you're getting close to your end of your sentence. What are you thinking about doing when you get out then? I mean, I know you've mentioned the pastoral thing, but... Yeah.
Definitely getting into the ministry is one of them. Coming home to ignite, just tell my story, man. Just to turn around as many people as I could, man. Through whatever avenue that would take place. My biggest dream was to get a building and you know, a youth center. Name it after one of my guys that passed away while I was in prison, Major Best, called the Major Best Youth Center. Haven't gotten it yet. Well, his family, they own City Cab in Greenville, and they used to take blood to Red Cross. I guess during a winter storm, a branch broke off and fell onto his car, and it killed him. So, you know, just off his name himself and his character, man, you know, he served his family, he served his community, and he served his world by you know, taking that blood, so that blood could go across all the world. So that was going to be the three principles that I would teach in a youth center in his honor. So that was one of the things that, you know, I probably still could do it at some point. But, you know, ministering as far as being an athlete, you know, touch as many athletes as I could, so they don't have to go down that road that I went down. You know, of course, these days it's more believable. You know what I mean? It's more believable that you can reach the next level of in your sport. You know, looking around today, I see a lot of kids from the west side of Greenville on TV. You know, NBA guys winning big in college right now. Guys going to play baseball. You know, and one of the other things is that parents are there. Parents are with their kids, man. That's one of the things that blew me away when I saw that. And I'm just talking about on the west side of Greenville, that, you know, mom is there, dad is there. You know what I mean? And so I wanted to be a part of that as well. My first coaching gig was at Jackie Robinson Baseball League on the west side of Greenville, where I coached Cornerstone Church, where you know, Michael Joyner and Norma Warren and all those great people that, you know, helped run that organization. They gave me an opportunity to come over there, and in spite of my felony, to coach baseball and to be a part of that program. Yeah. So that was one of the things I was grateful for, something that I kind of, hope that I will be able to do, because you don't know what you can do with a felony. But God is, he's kind of broken those barrels down.
Yeah. What was the hardest? You did 18 years, you said?
I did 16 years and 11 months.
Okay. What was the hardest adjustment when you first walked out of those doors? What was the hardest thing to get used to?
The hardest thing to get used to was, choices, choosing. In prison, you have this thing that you're going to do, pretty much every day. And whether it's, working out, of course, you're going to go to work, training, you're going to go to the store, you're probably going to buy the same thing every time. So when I get out of prison, I go into a store, and all this different stuff, is before me. And I'm like, man, what in the world? What? I don't know if I want a Snicker bar. I don't know if I want a payday. I don't know what I want, man. And so then going to the halfway house, here's a quick story right here. Getting out of prison, my simple meal was I wanted 2 Chick-fil-A sandwiches.
Yes, sir, dude.
I wanted 2 Chick-fil-A sandwiches, man. But, I was able to get with some friends and family members. We ended up getting something different than Chick-fil-A. They said, no, you ain't getting no Chick-fil-A sandwich. That's all. But, And so one of the hardest things was just adjusting, just adapting. I remember falling on the floor and crying, and saying, Lord, I don't know what to do, This is a traumatic experience, man. This is trauma. Coming from, something so intense to coming home to something, that's abroad and supposed to be free. But it takes a long time for your mind to turn back over to now you're being out here in the so-called free world. You know what I mean? I still, almost 8 years later, I still have trouble like operating in the nighttime, because I don't go out as much at night. Of course, you didn't go out much in prison at nighttime, so I didn't know how to adapt to prison. On this side, because there's no going out at night. Sometimes the nightlife looks strange out there. You know what I mean? So just adjusting, but through time, once you step off the porch, if you will, and start finding your place, your experiences, and then you're just a little bit better. You're just a little bit better. I still have that problem going into the grocery store sometimes. Like man, what am I gonna buy, man? What am I gonna get? So it's still pretty systematic for me, to go into a store and to try to buy something different,
Do you? You mentioned filling the bathtub up with alcohol. Did you ever feel like, now you got, I don't know what they sell in prison, but now you got, like you said, Snickers, Paydays, you got some Baby Ruth, and then you got Mick Ultra, you got some Colt 45, you got all these. Did you ever have any issues or temptations to reach in the cooler and grab something there?
In prison?
No. And when you came out,
I have drank alcohol since I've been home.
But I guess you never really had an issue with it, at least consumption wise, before.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, I have drank alcohol since I've been home.
But it's just like frozen by the decisions. In other words, what you're saying.
Right. It's pretty much, being around it sometimes and okay, let me try that. Yeah, let me try that. Let me try that right there. You know what I mean? But as of lately, God has been, pulling me away from things that I might have, stepped out too far to try.
Like what?
Alcohol. Alcohol, man, and it's just not necessary. I remember speaking to my first job was with a substance abuse and mental health company. And what I would do was I was first a transporter. I would go pick, the consumers up, the individuals up, and bring them back to the company. And then at some point I began to be a part of the programs as well to facilitate some of the programs. You know what I mean? So throughout, being home, I would, get asked to come speak to groups and stuff like that. But I remember not too long ago, I went to speak to a group, and I called it POUR, P-O-U-R, POUR. And it was just an acronym that meant purge out unwanted retention. Purge out unwanted retention. And I remember going speaking to that group, right? And I, in prison, I took public speaking class, so I can go do a public speaking, session. But as soon as I left there talking to them, I went and got alcohol myself. You know what I mean? And so I start to, feel those contradictions and stuff like that. And again, I'm still working on that subject. But I remember writing yesterday while I was at work. I wrote on the long side of the paper that, okay, this is a good topic, but now it has to become a great experience that you have to be a part of yourself before you can go out and make an impact with it. If you're gonna purge out unwanted retention, if you're gonna tell someone to do it, then you have to experience this yourself. And right now we're in that experience phase right now.
I love that, man. So right now, right now, are you trying to actively doesn't sound like you have a drinking. You ain't ended up in the ditch. It doesn't sound like, but
Right.
Are you trying to actively be sober now?
For the most part.
What's for the most part mean?
For the most part means that if I feel like I need to go drink alcohol for the sake of quieting whatever's going on in my life, choose something else. Choose something else. You know
Right.
what I mean? And so you look back over your experiences. What helped you to overcome, those times or those temptations? Then it was, exercise for me. It was exercise. I exercised after work last night. I picked up a shift, and then it dawned on me I'm going to work out when I leave. When I leave work, I'm going to work out. So I called that, my hashtag. I called that the new nightlife.
I like that.
Training at night. You know what I mean? And then when you go home, you just go to bed, man.
It's almost like change because I think if you don't, you're saying that maybe you go reach for a cold beer or whatever it's going to be to kind of silence some of those voices. Yeah.
For the most part, I'm a red wine kind of guy.
Oh, really? Okay, getting those antioxidants in.
Yeah, I'm a red wine kind of guy. I read about that in prison, so I said maybe I'll go home and try that, but
Yeah.
then red wine turned into tequila, and it turned into brown liquor. Hennessy. Nah, that's not it right there. That's not it. You be burping that up 2 days, and that's just not it, man.
Yeah.
That's just not it.
Man, I appreciate your honesty about that.
Yeah, we're gonna be transparent now.
Yeah, no, I like it because I think I think the idea of what you're saying is what are you drinking away or what are you drinking off, and I had an issue with alcohol for years, and I guess it'd be 3.5 years sober, but I didn't realize at the time that I was trying to escape my past, escape my mistakes, and when I was how many beers it took more and more as the time went on.
Right.
It helped me escape for that moment, and so I think, what are you drinking? I think unfortunately, it's a lot of escape.
Right.
And I don't mean that in a judgmental sense. There's a lot of people, man, who can have a glass of wine, a beer here, and have no issue, and I have no issue with that. And I'll go to dinner with those people, and I got no issue with it. my relationship with alcohol was my environment had to change, the people I was surrounding myself with had to change, my habits and my self-talk mostly was the biggest thing where I just had to change. So, how about your son? So he was 2, and so now he's 18-ish. When you get out?
When I get out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your guys' relationship when you get out of prison?
When we get out of prison, it's new because he don't really know me.
Mm.
You know what I mean? It's new. Is trying to figure out who Dad is, but at the same time, is trying to figure out who he is. And you know, I have a street reputation that he know about, and now he has a street reputation himself. You know what I mean? He's even taking my nickname and put it upon himself. You know what I mean?
Really?
And then so he was involved with some early crime and stuff like that in the streets and what have you, and so right now we're kind of bumping heads, man, and really not able to get on the same page right now. And so
How much do you? how much? Don't take this the wrong way. How much do you blame yourself at all for that?
I maybe a small degree, a small degree, but I don't overwhelm myself with blame, because at some point you have to look at your own decision making. You know what I mean? Because I could go on forever blaming my father. I can go on forever blaming my mother. But guess what? At some point, everybody had issues with life. You know what I mean? Where they couldn't fulfill, every aspect of their child's life. And at some point, you still have to grow up. I don't care what your I don't care what your background is. I don't care what your past is. You still have to grow up, and you still have to claim your decisions. You still have to claim your mistakes. But I do all that with grace. You know what I mean? I do all that with grace. I give grace, and I give myself grace as well, because I realize that at some point, God can turn those things around. You know what I mean? If we're just willing.
Yeah. Man, that's incredible. So how old is he now then?
He's 26 now.
26. Is he around the area?
I'm not sure where he is right now, man.
Y'all talk much or no?
Not really.
What are you hoping? What are your goals there with him?
That is just get his life on track, man.
Yeah.
Just get his life on track. Get his life on track. I got an older son as well, man. I hope he, come around. He was the same way. Into the streets and stuff like that, man. Just hoping that, the guys get this stuff, get it together, man.
Yeah.
At some point, I believe in that.
Do they have any kids or anything?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a
so you're a granddad.
I'm a granddad.
Yes, sir.
Times 2 right now.
Uh-huh. Do you have a relationship with the older one?
The older son? Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I do.
You good?
Yeah, we're good. Yeah.
How old is he?
He's 31.
Okay.
31 years old. Actually, I got out in 1990. No, excuse me. I got out in 2015 in April, and then the next week he was in jail, and then he spent 7 years in prison. So he's been home now, going on, I don't know, a year and a half or so. Yeah.
Has he turned his? Seems like he's turned his life around since the 7 years.
He's working on it.
Okay.
He's working on it, man.
Okay.
He's working on it, man, and we have a good relationship, because at some point I didn't even know he was my son, and so
really?
So we're still fresh off of learning each other.
When was that? When did you find that out?
He was 18 years old when I found out. I was still in prison.
Really?
Yeah, I was still in prison, man. So he was able, I remember talking to him and said, man, I've been looking for you, man, all my life. You've been looking for me all his life, man, and metaphorically.
Yeah. Right.
Knowing that I was in prison or whatever, but we have a good good relationship, man.
What was that like when you first saw him 18 years old? What was that moment like?
Actually, he wasn't 18 when I met him. He was 18 when I found out.
Oh, okay.
I still had like 4 more years to do, so he was probably like 22 when I first saw him, and it was like seeing my twin. You know what I mean? It was like seeing my twin, man. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
That's overwhelming. Do you ever battle just shame sometimes, just in your mind, of just things? I mean, you've obviously used the mistakes and stuff in incredible ways, and I don't think you'd be who you were, and you probably wouldn't be as good as what you're doing now if you didn't have those experiences and those, I guess, I don't want to say failures, but do you battle shame though at the same time? Like, if I just would have known this, if I would have done that.
That's probably a modicum of shame, man. Just a small amount of shame, but I'm able to walk with shame in spite of any shame. Again, if you will, this is my clothing line. It's called Pure Grace.
Okay, I like that.
What I mean?
Yeah.
And nothing that I have done, man, that I can claim on my own, man. Everything that I'm able to do, whether it is through shame or whether it's through any emotional or depression, it is because of grace of God. And let's just say, in spite of any shame, in spite of any emotion that would kind of sidetrack me or weigh me down, I'm going anyway. Like somebody would ask me, they knew I was coming here, so are you nervous? If I am nervous, I'm going anyway. So whatever's going on, whatever I battle with, I'm going forward anyway. You know what I mean? So that's how I handle that.
Dang. So what? And you've been out. Sorry, my mind's all twisted on the dates. We've said so many numbers between your son's ages, how long you're in prison. You've been out. Did you say 8 years? How long you been out? 8 years? 15?
Yeah. 2000. April 15th. April 15th will be. April 15th will be 8 years.
Okay. What do you? So what are you up to now?
Currently, occupation-wise, I'm working at ECU Health.
Get that right.
I'm a patient transporter. This is my second stint with them. Initially, I was when COVID came out. They went into the community to find people that might want a job, and I was able to get on with that crew, and I was a community health advocate as far as going out in the community and asking people, if they would take part in the surveys concerning COVID. And then after that program ended, I was able to be, I transferred to the COVID testing site. So I worked out there for over a year. And then after that, at some point, I stepped out and went into my own business, a training business, a GFIT training and performance business. And then, but one of the things that someone said to me, Derrick, if you ever wanted to come back, you're welcome to come back. And so I was out there, going hard for the training business and stuff like that. But nevertheless, them bills start running around, a little bit quicker. So I decided, that I would, reach back out, and they let me back in there. And now I'm a patient transporter in the ED, in the emergency room, man. And I coach baseball at CMX Middle School. Okay. Sit on the board of commissioners for the city of Greenville for the recreation department.
Oh, nice.
Still mentoring, still a minister in the community. I may call myself the chaplain of the streets.
Yes, sir. I like that.
I still hang out in that, in that area.
Yeah.
And
why do you do that?
I just, if I could stop anybody, man, if I could minister to anybody, change, if you're already into it, you can change before you go get into something that you can't handle. You know what I mean? If I could, a child, a kid, if I could give them the perfect word to keep them on that particular path to success, without having to go through, excess suffering based off of choices and the mistakes that you made, I would welcome that. I want to do that. That's why I do that.
But let me ask you this. So what do you say to someone if I'm 18 years old and let's say I don't live in a healthy household, maybe my dad's not around, maybe it's a violent household, but now all of a sudden I'm on the streets and I'm making, I don't know, 10 grand a week or whatever it is. your money is good. You're making 10 grand a week. You're feeling you're on top of the world. Why in the mess? Like I said, I'm 18. Why in the mess would I listen to you when I'm getting all the money, I'm getting to party, I'm getting, what are you going to say to me? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'm going to start with my story. I'm going to start with my journey. I'm going to start with, I've been there. I've done that. You know what I mean? And perhaps the word that I'm speaking to you today may not be for you now. But like in 1993, when the guy told me I was going to be a preacher one day, it was a seed planted to recall me when I was able in a spot or in a position to listen or to hear it. And then, as Bible says, one plants seed, one water, and then God gives the increase. At some point, that seed being watered will increase. Hopefully it'll do that before, they get into such bind. You know what I mean, and get out of it. You know what I mean. But I'll tell them my story, man. I'll give them the highs, the lows, and hopefully, before it's too late, that they will. You know what I mean? I realize that, at that particular point, it's hard to reach you. Who could reach me at that particular time? Not many people. But I wasn't afraid to listen at that point. You know what I mean? I wasn't afraid to listen.
Do you think most of those guys are willing to listen to you? Or are they kind of like, nah, dude?
I think they would listen, given reputation. You know what I mean? I have a great reputation on the west side of Greenville. You know what I mean? If someone, could connect the dots to who I might be or who I used to be, who they might said I used to be. You know what I mean? I have a good reputation in the community as far as someone that went through that game and did what he was supposed to do. When he got caught, did what I was supposed to do, to stand up, if you will, do my time and get that street cred. I guess you can call it. I still got street credit. You know what I mean? And so that gives me an advantage over people that may have
never lived that.
chose another avenue.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you ever see some of the guys you maybe used to run with, maybe they haven't turned their lives around or still living that way? Do you ever see any of those guys when you go down there?
As far as running with guys, everybody that I went to prison with, man, are home now, very successful.
Really? You say 6, 5, 6,
It's
including
6
you?
of us, yeah. Nobody came out thinking, man, we're about to pick that pack back up.
Right.
You know what I mean? We learned what we learned in prison, and even more, man. Look, I don't even know why people not chasing us down to hear our stories. You know what I mean? I don't know why they're not doing it. You know what I mean? But
Why do you think it is? I think that's a great question. Why do you think that is?
Street cred also comes with street hate. You know what I mean? We're different. We did it differently.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Even during our trial times, it was told to us that either federal prosecutor or someone from that side said these are not your average drug dealers. You know what I mean? All of us graduated from high school.
Mm.
You know what I mean? At some point, some of us went to the military. Some tried college. We just weren't out there just causing havoc or in the way. We were, we got locked up for a conspiracy, but it's not like we sat down and had a floor plan of what we're gonna do. But we were pretty much organized, if you will. Organized, just not, sitting down again with no blueprint. We just realized that, hey, we're not going to be out here acting all crazy and stuff like that. And then we kind of kept our circle, a little bit tight.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Circle tight. And it's pretty much that way now. Of course, for the sake of not knowing who may be still involved. So, we keep our circle tight. You know what I mean? We realize that we can't just run with anybody because somebody might be into X, Y, and Z, and the last thing we want to do is be trapped off in some conspiracy that we don't know about, right? So, again, there's a certain amount of, let's say, disdain, if you will, jealousy even, that you're not like the rest, or you're not like most. And because of that, I don't know, man. I've been trying to figure it out myself, and not even on the street side. I have a story to tell. You know what I mean? And even amongst some of the groups or organizations that I frequent with, I'm really surprised that they don't allow me to help more. I'm really surprised they don't allow me to say more. You know what I mean? For the sake of peace. I just think that people are afraid that if you say something more worthy than they say, then they will be seen less, or they will be heard less. And it's never my goal to go out there and to shine just to be shining. But I'm not fading away from any light that God has caused to be upon me, that I may tell this story. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because it was my journey, and it got me to this place. And I may claim it as my own, but I know it just doesn't belong to me all by myself. It is to give to somebody, to let you know that you can go through life. You can make bad decisions. You can make bad choices. You can be knee deep in sin. You can be knee deep in experiences that could kill you. But if God send a rescue, take that rescue. Take that rescue. Allow God to work in your life, and to transform you. I mean, the name of my book, if you will, is my journey through my transitions to my transformation for my testimony. That's what it is. It's the transitions of my life. It is the transformation of my life, and it's the testimony of my life. And I think I have a great story combined with the greatest story ever told of Jesus Christ. You know, it is a redemptive story.
For sure.
It is a redemptive story, and sometimes you can tell a redemptive story to a person that may not haven't even entered into stages where their life may be in trouble. And then instead of turning their lives around, they won't have to turn it around. They can start from hearing a story and say, man, I don't want to go down that path. You know what I mean? And I think it is the fear of other people thinking that if someone else tell a story better or more than them, that they will be heard less, or they will be seen less. I really think that. You know what I mean? But I call it 17 years in prison. I spoke in prison. If I could speak to the hardest criminals in prison, if I can call them to the front myself, hey, can I have your attention, please? And if we're not quite doing everything we need to do to get ourselves in formation to prepare ourselves to go home, you know what I mean? I'm called by God to do that, to speak, to share what's on my heart, what's on my mind, right? And it's the same thing out here, whether it's in schools, whether it's in streets, whether it's in the sports arena, you know. I'm called to do that. It's a calling.
I agree with everything you're saying. I think when there's certain people you can tell when they tell their story, they're telling their story and they want to tell their story and bring the light to me. Whereas I can tell when you tell your story, it's like the greatest stories always point to something greater than just that story. You know, like I don't believe that your story, you're trying to make it ain't about you. Right. You know, it's pointing to something else, you know. And I am also fascinated. I was telling my wife a couple days ago, I just love hearing people's stories. I mean, look, call it what it is. You're black, I'm white, you grew up in a different neighborhood than me, I grew up in a different neighborhood. We've lived two different lives, but we're also joined by stories. Right. You know, and like I just don't think in this world we take the time to sit down and hear each other's stories and just tell stories. You know, even I look at what Jesus did. It's like I very rarely it seems to me, did he say, well, let's open up to, nothing wrong with the Bible at all, but let's open up to this scripture. What do you think about that? No, he told stories. You know, he told the prodigal son. He talked about the sowing seeds. He told stories, and there's something to me about just exchanging stories. I mean, I've learned a ton of lessons just from, and you ain't even trying to teach me. You're just telling stories, man. And so, but it also requires me to keep my mouth shut and listen to you. Well, and I think that's a lot of it too. Well,
praise God, man. Praise God. I remember opening up the Bible in the county jail and seeing all those names, man, and like, wow, I would never be able to understand what this Bible's talking about because I had the King James version. You know what I mean? I had never understood that. But I based that off of how well I did in school. At some point early on in my life, I probably did well in school and I paid attention a little bit, but I based it off that experience. But when I was able to sit down in prison and open up the Word of God, quite naturally, you know, you need the Holy Spirit to help you, you know, to see it, and then you need people around you that can help, you know, show you some things and teach. It became one of the greatest things that I ever encountered, man. Look, I always compare. Well, there's no comparison. Like on the streets, I try to get as many guns as I could, you know, just for the sake of having those guns, man, around. But then in prison, I laughed at myself. Now look at me, man. I'm trying to get every book that I can, man, that can help me understand the Word of God, that can tell a story about, you know, the things that people have gone through. And that became one of my greatest joy, man. I long to wake up in the morning, man, to start my day off with God and to start my day off with, with the Word. And, at some point, I became inmate pastor. I started teaching Bible study, man. And looking back, okay, you'll never be able to understand this to where now you're in a working relationship with God, illuminating His Word to you daily. And that became the greatest, man. If I'd give anything up just to be able to do this every day. I mean, I just not even work a job, because there came a time where I was taking classes. My uncle told me that he said, when you come home, I'll give you my HVAC business, for whatever reason he was telling me that. And so I go take this HVAC class, and then I remember this guy, he was teaching the class, and he said that, speaking about, current and electricity, he said, how current is always trying to find his way back home. And here I am sitting in this class, and all of a sudden, I think of the Holy Spirit, how, especially once you put off the flesh, that you're always going to find your way back to God. And I said that, I said, Lord, you don't even want me to get a job when I go home, do you? Yeah. And then another class, it was, we were taking a business class, and I think we were taking a first aid class, and then they taught us about how you can breathe in 21 pounds of air, oxygen, you're 21 pounds of air, and then you exhale 16, because you don't need it. And you only need 5 to continue to sustain yourself. So, number 5, here I am reading books. Okay, the 5 is the number of grace. I said, Lord, you don't want me to get no job when I go home, do you? Man, I'm trying to take a business class, but everything that I hear is connected to the Word of God. It's connected to the things of God, man. So it is the joy of my life, man, to sit down for hours and just open up the Word, and it is the most beautiful thing in the world, man. You can, it is the book of all books. The Word of God, man. The Word of God, man, helps sustain you through life, man. If we stick with it, man. We stick with it.
It's easy to get out of the. I mean, maybe I'm just making excuses. It's easy to get out of the rhythm of that, though, too. Yeah. And rest back on your. Okay. Yeah. I'll read it later. I'll check it out later. And then you just never, you fall off that wagon.
Absolutely. Yeah. Until you become desperate again.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah. Until you become desperate again. I think it's Michael W. Smith, man, that sing that song. I'm desperate for you. Yeah, I'm desperate for you. I keep saying it because I thought the song would come back so I can sing it a little bit.
No, you can go ahead, man. You got the mic.
The words didn't come yet, but I just know that it said that I'm desperate for you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, your holy presence living in me. Your holy presence living in. Then your daily word living in me. Something like that. Michael W. Smith. And that word, man, living in you. And then that fresh Holy Spirit, man, just living in you and around you. I was pushing a patient the other day, and it was a pastor. She was in the hospital. And as I walked in the room, I knocked on the door. I introduced myself. My name is Derrick, and I am your transporter. And I said, "What are y'all doing?" She said, "Well, we're in here praying." I said, "Well, I'm in the right room then." I'm in the right room. And then, three little white ladies, man.
Yeah.
And so she's laying on her bed, grabbed my hand, and started praying for me. She said, "I see the Holy Spirit over top of you." I said, "Ma'am, I just got that back. I just got that back." I said, "I just got that glow back." I was desperate for that, and I just got that back, man. And I gave her a book, and but again, I was desperate. I just got that glow back.
Yeah, there's a good song I like by Maverick City too, "Fresh Fire."
I do know of Maverick City. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all crave that fresh fire for Christ and just having that spirit. But with the fire, I think sometimes you feel the fire in the moments you don't want to feel the fire when you get sentenced to prison. you know, when you made mistakes in your marriage, when you, whatever it is, when times usually aren't that good,
Right.
when you are desperate.
Absolutely.
But you also, at the same time, I remember when you and I talked on the phone, you said you craved that night when you had that encounter with Christ in prison. Like you just craved that fire, you know. But what as we close up too, what I do have a question on that book, but my other question is, what do you want at least your legacy to be now? Whether it's your sons or somebody who's just bumps into you in the street, what do they want? What do you want them to say about you?
That, hey, I perhaps started down the wrong road, and at some point, some encounter, I always say that divine purposes are fulfilled in everyday experiences. That God called me, I heard the call, I received the call no matter where I was, and then I ran on and told the greatest story that that Jesus Christ is the Savior of the world, and that you can live a life of fulfillment on this side of earth, you know, on this side of living, and that without Christ, you know, for me, probably for millions of us, that it's going to be difficult to live a life of fulfillment, to live a life of peace, and then that inexpressible joy. And also that, you know, I didn't shy away from the hard things. That, you know, I went into places and told my story. You know, I didn't shy away from my shame. I walked with it, side by side with it, and God used me. God used me.
So tell people about the book.
Yeah, I wrote this.
Hold it up if you don't mind. Let's see what you got.
It's my journey.
Yeah.
Through my transition, through my transformation, for my testimony. It's we're almost 4 years in now after writing it. I did a lot of writing in prison, and then kind of had a manuscript. But once I got home, I started writing again. I kind of wrote this book just off the experiences. Of course, we already spoke about, you know, living in Greenville. So I went to the first place that I lived was Kearney Park Projects, right on the side of this the street that I lived on. I wrote that first chapter. Man, because I was not feeling myself that particular day, getting out of prison, and I went and got some paper, pencil, some hummus, and sat down, and I started just sitting in the projects and writing. And so it is almost a chronological account of my life from, you know, Kearney Park Projects, through baseball, through college, through the streets, into prison, and then on my way home, I did my initial sermon, you know, as a newfound preacher on this side of that life. Yeah.
Mind if I this ain't gonna help. I'll probably cook through this pretty quick. Just as I love, like I said, I love a good story. Where can people get this book at?
That book is on Amazon. It's on Amazon. Of course, Derrick Clark, My Journey is on Amazon, and also I sell them out my book bag. I sell them out the car. As of late, sales have reemerged, as you know, picked the book back up and started, you know, promoting it again, and so it's still available on Amazon, and I can sell it to you.
I'll put a link. In the description below for that. I'll find it on Amazon. Anything else you want to? Anything else you'd like to say?
Hey, man. Again, divine purposes are fulfilled in everyday experiences. You know, grab hold to the things of God and do your very best to stay committed. And be transparent with God, be transparent with other people, and I believe, man, that through transparency our lives, man, can continue to transform, and that we will grow into the thing that God has called us to be more purely.
I love that, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I would like to have you back on, honestly, if I can get a soft close right now and have you back on just to follow up, because I think, like I said, I love good stories, and especially with just your exposure, who you're around and just the stories, just sharing stories, man. So I'd love to have you back on. I guess I put a link in there too for where people can follow you at.
Okay.
But other than that, man, I appreciate you coming on,
Absolutely,
dude.
man.
And like I said, I love just getting to know you better, man.
Absolutely, man.
So-
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. As we close up too, I just again appreciate, ask you guys would subscribe, share. Again, we'll put Derrick and his information on there, so give him a follow. It's just incredible, just inspiration, and really I think all we're doing is just telling stories, just swapping stories, and I'd encourage everyone to do that. And then other than that, I think that's it, man. I appreciate it, and we'll see you guys next week.
Where do I go? What will I be? It's who I am. What will they see? Maybe I pray, yeah. At the end of my days, yeah. What will they say? What will they say?